Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 384. We have a guest. Actually, he's been on the show before, but it was a little bit of a different lineup. I think it goes way back to the episode 50 something or something. But that's an old friend of mine. We used to work together at a game studio, Chris Clark, which we'll get to in a minute. But right now, we're just going to do what we always do: go around the room, the virtual room anyway, and just tell everyone anything we got to promote or anything going on in our world. So. Right now I'm on Josh's channel, but if you go to my YouTube channel, just search Circworks Art Labs on YouTube. Check out some of the new videos I'm making. I'll have another one coming out on Tuesday. But basically what I'm doing on YouTube is I'm reverse engineering classic novelties and nostalgia from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, kind of putting my own spin on it, giving a little history of whatever it is I'm making. So it's real fun stuff. Definitely check that out. Also, you can check out my stuff at circworks.com, where I have my comic book Young and the Dead, Kids vs. Zombie Adventure Story. Plus, I have digital products that will help you create comics. So definitely check those out. I make all kinds of digital products that will make comics go faster and easier for you and make them more fun and easier to create. So check that stuff out at my website at circworks.com. What is going on with all the different little things there? All right, and we're gonna kick it over to Josh, who's gonna, I think, give us a quick little special presentation too.
Yeah, so I just realized I was on mute. I usually would make my announcements and tell people what books to buy and stuff like that. But Jim Luhan made a new promotional video. For those of you who are subscribed to my YouTube channel, and watch my live streams, you'd know whenever I go on break on a live stream, I play these little commercials that are community provided. So Jim made a custom animation just for my channel, and I want to share it because it also promotes my stuff, and also it's Jim's stuff, so I think our audience will get a kick out of it. So it's about a minute, so bear with us.
Yeah, no, it's great.
You know, George, you can't say the craziest thing.
So, little Susie, do you have any brothers or sisters? I understand you're in 3rd grade. How do you like that? Do you like your teacher? You like to do a lot of fun things at school? You got any hobbies, Susie? Any things you like to do when you're not in school? I hear you like to read.
Well, right now I'm reading 2 stories written and illustrated by Joshua Kimball. It grapples with faith and mental illness. It's ultimately a story about redemption. It's a savage piece of writing. Also, I just finished up Jacob's Apartment, another one by Kimball. Jacob's Apartment weaves together elements of spiritualism and relationship dynamics, as well as atheism. And all the while it deals with abandonment and loyalty. It's a fierce read.
Do you like ponies?
I love it.
That kills me.
That's so good.
Yeah, so thanks, Jim, for sending that in. I'm gonna overplay that so much, but just that voice too of the announcer, and then the choice.
The girl. I love how you did the girl's voice too.
Yeah, the girl's voice is like a deep goth emo. Anyhow, Corey, where can people find your stuff, bud?
Oh, you can find my stuff at coreykerr.com. I've got. I'm gonna make myself bigger. You can see it. So I've got some new anti-phone phone cases up, and you can check those out, or you can grab anything else from those types of things, and so you can see all those designs, or the rest of those designs are going to be available. So I'm starting to get back into a little bit of the color on some of these. I've been spending most of this year in black and white, and so got some color options for those of you that aren't into black and white stuff.
Yeah, you're getting quite a collection there.
Yeah, it's getting there.
Okay, and so I guess we'll move over to Chris. So like I said, Chris and I worked together at a game studio, I don't know what, like 15 years ago, maybe? More, less?
Yeah, can we say the name of it?
Yeah, we can say it. It's no longer around, but it was Broken Bulb Game Studios. We did, that was back with the Facebook game craze, and we did that. And then we moved on to doing some iPhone games and stuff like that. But but yeah, it was a lot of fun working there.
Yeah, we technically worked at 2 places together.
Oh, that's true too.
And the
Yeah,
second
so after,
one was like when we showed up for the job, it was just like an empty office with like a desk and 2 people, a couple of chairs.
that's true. Yeah, it was, and it was. They kept promising, "Oh, we're gonna get this big." They said they were gonna take over this landscaping studio. So it had like, or was it? No, maybe it was a pool company or something like that.
Yeah, they told us that there was like a pool there.
There was gonna be a pool and a basketball court.
Yeah, Fabrizio was the guy's name. Is this big Italian guy, very loud and.
That sounds like really like a legit business. A guy named Fabrizio. You come in, it's like a closet, and he's like, "Trust me, there's going to be."
Well, I don't think it was
airports.
I think, like many startups, it was kind of like I think that having the funding didn't totally come through, but
That's amazing.
But anyway, but it was both those 2 places were fun to work at. You know, so,
if he had as much funding as he had confidence, it might still be around.
Yeah. So yeah, Chris does game design and stuff, and he works on right now. You're doing you work remotely doing game design for another company, right?
Yeah, I'm, like I just call myself an illustrator, a game animator. I guess is probably the best way. I do like drawing and inking and painting, and I work in Spine and like do animations for game characters and that. Fool around with some other stuff from time to time.
So what I seem to do we do anything with? I'm trying to remember. Spine is that like a?
We never used Spine. The first time I ever used it was at the company I work at now.
Okay, all right.
I'm not going to drop their name, but
no, you don't have. No, that's cool.
But yeah, like I actually started out with Spriter, and then we moved to Spine.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Spine is a bit more advanced. So
I backed Spriter on Kickstarter years ago.
It was a really cool program. I liked it. It just eventually we moved to Spine because it just had. It's better for devs. There's just more options for the devs to work with.
Yeah. So what we were going to talk a little bit about, because I think especially this is also kind of, I know this is good for Josh right now with the situation he's in, but just basically talking about like different options for artists, like the pros and cons of either working like like either full-time creative job, part-time creative job, working freelance, doing both at the same time. I know personally I've done just about every different version of that you can think of. So I know, and then I know you did want to talk about some of the programs and stuff like that, but we can go wherever the conversation takes us. But I guess why did you kind of want to talk about that basically full-time versus, because I know you're also doing the personal projects. The one we see on the screen is a personal project. So I mean, we can get into that, and we can get into just the kind of work you do, because one thing interesting is that right now, like I said, you're working remotely for a company, and I think you said something like like once a year you guys meet up, but besides that, it's all remote work and everything, which that sounds kind of a cool scenario too.
I mean, it can get lonely, but I also don't have so much drama to deal with of like, I'm sure a lot of people have had jobs where they're with someone they have to see every day, and they're like, I like this job, but I really don't like that person. And so you don't really have that problem very much. But I don't know. It's everything like has pros and cons. I brought up this topic because it's something that I think about from time to time, because you never know what the future is going to bring, especially as an artist. It's notorious for artists to be jumping from project or job to job, project to project, constantly, not knowing what's going to come next.
Yeah.
I'm in kind of like, I think, a rare position because I've been working here for like 9 years.
Wow. So, yeah. The longest I've ever worked for any place, I think, was 3 years, and that includes like Broken Bulb. So
yeah.
Like, and it's like always, most of those companies end up folding because they're like, whether it's like a full-time job, part-time, or like a contract or something, where you don't even make it to the end of the contract or whatever because they run out of money or whatever. I've been in that situation so many times. So, but that's cool that this company you're working with now is continuing on
and they are a startup still, pretty much.
Yeah.
Even though 9 years in, that's something else I think a lot of people don't realize about startups is it doesn't have to be a year or two old to be considered a startup.
Right.
I'm not sure if there is some sort of year cutoff point where eventually they say, okay, you can't call yourself that anymore. I don't know how that works exactly, but yeah, it is. I think it's more based off the size of your company and the revenue and things like that.
And probably has something to do with where the funding's coming from and everything too, I assume.
Yeah, and that is important. Actually, it seems arbitrary to be calling it a startup or not, but there's different types of funding that they can have access to depending on what kind of company they have. So, like the size and the scope determines what kind of funding they can get. So, the terms actually do matter.
So, without getting into too much, because I know you don't want to talk about the company itself, but can you talk about like what kind of like games you're working on? I mean, are they like casino games? Are they iPhone games? Is it?
It's more for like under 18, like children and teenagers is kind of like our main audience that we're trying to reach. But anyone can use our products.
Is it educational then, or?
Yeah, it's educational.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I don't know how they feel about talking about their company without permission, so I won't say the name of it.
Yeah,
but
no.
I will say that they do teach kids how to code. I think I can say that much.
Okay, cool.
Giving too much away.
All right, cool. Yeah, because I had mentioned that Josh had been doing art direction for how long were you at the company?
A little under 10 years, yeah.
10 years, right. And then you kind of
left. Yeah, we parted
left.
Yeah.
and now you're kind of in the and to be perfectly candid, I'm kind of in the same situation too, where right now I may, I'm looking to either start doing more freelance or who knows what, because I've been working on this YouTube stuff. I kind of, last year was a good year. I put some money aside and I'm going to invest everything into YouTube, and it's taken a lot longer than I was hoping. And I still want to continue it. But I got to start looking at some other options too. So it seems like it's kind of apropos for a lot of people here. So,
yeah.
So that's I'm just kind of like, okay, because I feel like I'm sort of out of the loop, because I haven't really, not only have I, other than I had a contract with the company last year, which I guess is sort of like, that's kind of like freelance work, but it was one company, which, going back to not putting all your eggs in one basket type of thing, which, in the meantime, I mean, I do have other income streams like products that I sell and things like that, but
yeah,
but there needs to be, at least this point, needs to be more than that. So all my eggs aren't in one basket, but I had one of those baskets was it was a little more full than the other one. So when something like that goes away, then you're like, well, okay, what do I do now? So now I'm looking at my options, but it's been a while since I've really done much freelance work, other than, I did some of the comic books I was doing, which were still messing around with that, trying to get stuff going with that, with the educational comics and things like that. But I was kind of sort of semi part of that company too, so it wasn't totally like a freelance thing. But I'm just like, okay, well, what do I do now? Because I feel like I gotta get back into the game. So I don't know. Do you feel like that too, Josh? Or
yeah, it's a little weird. I have like like a bunch of things I'm pursuing, so it's like it's going to be kind of interesting to see what pans out. I'm pursuing like freelance stuff. Which I've already picked up a little bit with my wife, because she's a kids book illustrator too.
Yeah.
And then I'm basically working on a script for a collaboration, so my literary agent can start pitching that around. So hopefully that'll be a stream of income if that comes to fruition. And just trying to finish up my current obligation with my books, and then also like seeking other full-time work. So it's like this kind of weird juggling act of just every morning is triage, but it's also very familiar because I've been a creative for about 20 years now. So
Yeah.
it's like it's a familiar thing, and like Chris was saying, it's kind of unusual to have been at a place for like 9+ years anyway, with the way that kind of creative goes, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see where I arrive. I'm kind of comfortable with whatever, but yeah, I agree. It is going to be interesting figuring out kind of and navigating a newer landscape. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also artists and creatives in general. You said, I like that word that you used because it encompasses more. It's just, we're notorious for like working a lot, like being obsessed and not knowing when to stop.
We're kind of workaholics.
Yeah, working ourselves to the bone until our fingers bleed.
Or until we need cortisone injections in our hands.
Yeah. Eventually, we'll be like the people in WALL-E, where we just are attached into a floating chair with like art supplies. Like on mechanical arms.
Yeah, we need like a drip IV of art. Just like, just need.
I don't mind that so much because you're, at least in that scenario, you're being productive because you're creating. Whereas the WALL-E, they're just watching media.
Right. So. Yeah, that's true. They're watchers. That's all they do. They're just consumers. Yeah.
That's actually a really good point. Like WALL-E wouldn't be so bad if everybody was a maker.
So you had mentioned the loneliness part. So what, I mean, I guess what is your kind of, what does a typical day work for somebody who works remotely? I mean, are you like us, where if you're either listening to YouTube or while you're drawing?
Oh yeah. I mean, I mean, sometimes I listen to music. If I really need to focus more, I might even go silent for a little while. But I think I would go insane if I just worked in silence.
Oh yeah.
All day, every day.
I've been doing a lot of editing, and that's what kind of sucks because Josh is doing, since he's now not going into that day job, he's doing a lot of live streams, and I'd like to listen to him live, but most of the time I'm like editing, and there's like no way I can edit and listen to the audio and edit and listen to a live stream. So
I've been feeling that pain too, Scott, because I kind of mentioned, I've been working on kind of adapting a screenplay with a writer that I'm collaborating with for comics. And so it's like re-scripting it. So it's a lot of editing and rewriting. And it's like, it bums me out because like I'll look on YouTube and there's a cool stream that I want to see. Like I missed Jim just had a stream with I can't even, anyhow. It's just like one of those things where it does get lonely when you can't like occupy yourself with the audio, which is tough if you're editing audio or writing,
The cool thing is sometimes, occasionally, if people have enough time and they don't have to focus too much, you might be able to get in like a Slack huddle. If anyone doesn't use Slack, like it's basically like doing a video audio chat or whatever, and then you might sit there for a few hours just talking while you're working, like, so you still feel like you're kind of in a workspace.
Nice. And you still hopefully, like, the benefit of work from home too is if you're not in the mood, you can probably just work solo for the day. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And like, you try really hard to fit in with the hours that the company wants you to, but I mean, sometimes, like, because you're at home, you might be able to do something real quick, like, oh man, those weeds are looking real bad, I better pull a few of those, or like, someone's coming over to look at the new windows I got to put in or something, and you can do that because you can't do, if you're in an office, you got to be like, well, I got to schedule it when I'm home. So and then you can make up that time and work like later in the day.
So I was going to pull up. I was going to pull up a chat. Is Big Stone says, came to support my brother Chris, but staying to see some amazing art. Is that Matt?
No, that's my friend.
It's not.
Ray.
I just wasn't sure because the last.
The Big Stones is Ray. That's
okay. Sorry. We have a friend.
He's like a brother from another mother, if you will.
That's cool.
Nice. Yeah. I also want to point out that Christopher Runciman said 10 watchers and only 2 likes. Come on, guys, hit those like buttons.
Apparently, they don't like what we're talking about, or they don't like the art
I
that's on the
know.
screen. Hey, you know, I
So
want to take
let's talk about the art, Chris, and I want to talk
Yeah.
about that balance you were talking about. So you're working on you're doing your day job, working from home, but you also have to have those other creative outlets. I assume, like all of us. So you're working on a personal project now, and I see you. I saw the title of it. It's like a Desert Angel. I see the desert inspiration there and the color scheme and everything like that. So you want to talk about what you're working on?
Okay. So I was looking at this awesome artist here, Pete Marbacher.
Moorbacher, yeah,
Moorbacher.
yeah.
Yeah, Moorbacher. He's you can see the website up here. Angellarium.net is his website. He's a phenomenal artist. This one on the right is actually not him. That's a fan art. His is on the left here. He does these intensely surrealistic and realistic renderings of characters. He likes to focus on angels, and they are uncommon. This one was one of my favorites that really was a big inspiration for the art. You can even see like the spikes on the head, and I had kind of spikes on this head. And if you want, I can explain more why I went in the direction I did and the changes I made and what it's about. But
Yeah.
just to show like some of his stuff here, you know, a
Yeah.
lot of his angels are really these bizarre, like kind of humanoid creatures that don't have heads, or their heads are warped in some way. That's kind of his thing. And some of them are really like creepy. I remember there's like the devil or something here. No, wait, the tarot.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Tarot.
Yeah. I used to follow, like, he used to do a live stream, a weekly art live stream with another guy.
Look at this. Yeah, this guy's amazing. I mean, his stuff he really has an incredible grasp on focal point, and like you know, not only that, but just the he has this way of doing symmetry and asymmetry where it looks symmetrical, but it never really is. And his compositions are really, really good. They really draw you in to the character, because it's always just a character. But like, look at this. I mean, this one's kind of cute. Like,
Yeah.
so he's got a real large breadth of work and skill. So I just wanted to show a few of his artworks because they are amazing. Check him out. Buy his stuff. He sells prints. He sells all kinds of stuff.
He's an incredible entrepreneur too. He really has you know, taken what he, in addition to being an awesome artist. But he used to give out a lot of art advice and stuff on his live stream too. So yeah, that's cool. But so I mean, so you're kind of taking inspiration from that, but it's kind of more of a line art comic book kind of style. Looks like.
Yeah. Now I chose that just for time because I can paint. And I do really love painting, but it is very time consuming if you're going to do some really beautiful, nicely, highly rendered stuff. You know, I could spend a few hours on a comic book style, like big illustration like this, whereas like a big painting might take a few days. So
yeah,
just in the interest of time, I decided to simplify it a bit. And it also makes it more unique and makes it stand alone apart from Moorbacher's work. You know, it's not like I'm just directly copying what he does. So my inspiration was the desert. I'm from Arizona. So I thought, you know, it'd be cool to do something like an angel that's like a desert angel. And what better desert to pick than the one that I was born in and that I know from years of living there.
yeah.
So this, there's like a jewelry up above the angel. That's like a turquoise.
Oh, cool.
It's going to be turquoise, like these things that you see them selling all the time over in Arizona. Like you see this kind of stuff everywhere there. And there's rocks kind of surrounding his body. And that's kind of like taken from like Monument Valley, kind of was the inspiration for that.
Nice.
The wings
That's,
are
inspired. What is it? Crazy Cat was all inspired by Monument Valley.
Crazy Cat. I'll have to look that up. I never heard of that.
It's like George Harriman. Like, anyhow.
Yeah, that's a classic cartoon strip. Yeah.
And of course, I'm sure you can recognize he's got wings. I love wings. I love drawing them. I think they're really cool. a lot of Moorbacher's angels don't have wings, but I wanted mine to have wings.
Nice.
So I was going to do kind of like a hawk, like a desert hawk. And then, of course, the rattlesnake and the scorpion tails is pretty obvious, like in the Arizona desert. The other thing is the head. One of my favorite birds is the cardinal. And I saw this picture of the cardinal. I was like, that's it. That's going to be the head right there. So I'm going to kind of color it similar to that too.
I don't, Corey, do you think, I mean, this process kind of reminds me of some of the stuff you do. I know you incorporate wings a lot in your stuff and just like combining different elements and of course your stuff's a little more, social commentary and stuff, but.
No, I mean, that whole process, I think that's one of the main ways that creativity works is, mixing a bunch of different inspiration and taking it from, things that have meaning to you or to others and kind of mix them up. So I definitely recognize a lot of this. At least the process of kind of saying, oh, I want a little of this and a little of that. So
yeah, it always kind of starts with a kernel, right, of some inspiration.
Yeah.
Do you when you do it, do you have a specific do you have like a message in mind, or are you just going specifically for trying to hit what am I saying?
I get what you're saying.
Are you mixing inspiration, or are you trying to say something specific? Like, is it a nod or is it a message?
For this, I guess the message would just be like, this is my home. Like, this is where I was born, and I'm going to transform it into something that inspired me, like another artist that inspired me. And it's not trying to be like a social commentary or anything like that. I mean, I've done art like that before. It's not my main forte, but I definitely appreciate it and respect it.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome. So, out of curiosity, what is this project for? Is this just a personal work that you're working on?
Yeah, just for fun. Just
awesome.
Just practice and fun. And
can you imagine, like, this is a unique thing about artists. Can you imagine like a plumber who gets off work plumbing and they're like, what I can't wait to do today is like, I'm going to fix the plumbing of my house.
I want to snake my drains and see what comes out.
It's a weird trade where we do it when we're not working too. It's kind of a weird thing.
Well, I think it's like a creative in general, like, because what you're talking about, that's kind of more like blue collar work. Like, that's hard work. I mean, respect.
That's like real work.
We do sissy work here.
We are true.
Yeah, no, any kind of creative pursuit, I think you have to do it constantly, or you just are going to lose your skill.
No, that's true. I've noticed that when you're working in-house or working for only clients, even if it's your own stuff and it's just paid gigs, you start getting kind of stale as an artist, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I do think pursuing that like passion, kind of feeds the paying stuff. Yeah.
So I have a question, Chris. So in the beginning, I asked if you had any links to any social media, and you said, no, not really. You got a website, but you said you weren't even sure if it was still up.
It works.
So
I started updating it, but I just got a new house last year, and so I'm constantly consumed by my house, my kids, and my work, and my own personal like relaxation, whether it's art or exercise or whatever. So I haven't had a lot of time for that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the reason why what I was leading into was because we kind of see the personal projects. When you take on personal projects, is it just purely just for the love of doing art, or are you trying to build towards something you can monetize, whether it's prints, whether it's putting that artwork on something else, or do you totally like separate those two things? Like, this is the artwork I get paid for, this is just what I want to do for fun, or how do you approach like personal projects? Is it like, again, is it just for the love of art or what?
Oh yeah, it's for the love of people and for the love of fun. I often make art for friends and family, and I don't charge anything for it. I just do it for just to show them that I care. And
That's awesome.
I also sometimes people will pay me if they offer to pay me. I'll be like, all right, well, if you really want to, I'll take your money, but because I could use it. But yeah, a lot. If it's for someone else, it's for them. Like, and it's not even what I want to do necessarily. But if it's something that I'm just doing it for me, I'm just gonna do whatever I think is fun. And I just don't really think about it too much beyond that, about how to monetize it or put it on social media or what is it, the message, or I just like to have fun. I think
So
art is fun.
Yeah. So what are some of the what are some of the past what does that look like as far as some of the past things that you've tackled? Like, is it basically like there's this one, you discover this artist, you say, oh, that's kind of cool, this is inspiring me to do something, and then just go about it? Or I mean, would you then go on and do more of those, or is it just like, I'm just going to get this out of my system and move on to something else, a different inspiration, or what? Like, what is the variety of stuff that you do for yourself look like? Because I know for me, or like Corey will come up with like what he's doing now with these anti-phone cases, and then, or like he's doing like t-shirts design with social comedy. He usually comes up with like a theme, and he'll run with it, and then he'll exhaust whatever, if he's just tired of that, or he wants to move on to something else, and he'll pick something else. So I'm just kind of curious, as far as you, is it similar, or is it just you do different things just to exercise, or just your just creative outlet? Or
well, it's a lot of questions. I'll try to remind me if I forget any of them.
I tend to go on tangents too, Chris.
That's okay. Before you all, if anyone is even still watching in the ether, we were talking about tangents, and I was saying we were going to be talking about trigonometry during this podcast. So
yes, we need to be.
Ready.
Speaking of trigonometry, too, we have 16 watchers. Make sure you hit like. Okay, continue, Chris. Sorry.
No,
like and subscribe.
We want 17 likes so we can be like, oh, somebody somehow figured out how to like something twice.
We've got to
what?
get all of them liking it, right? Or else
Agreed.
then we find out where they live.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true. We do have a map of where you all live, but
Yeah, that's what you don't know about YouTube. It shows us a lot of information. A lot. Okay, wait. What were the questions?
Well, I was talking. Basically, the gist of it was, how do you approach the different side projects? Are they all? Do you run with like a series? Like, will you do more of these after? More of this style,
it could be,
or
like I don't know about you guys, but I'm very scatterbrained about this sort of stuff. My mind.
I have ADHD, so I'm kind of all over.
Yeah,
I try to focus as much
tell.
as I can.
I am constantly thinking about things, and I oftentimes have to just say either that's on the back burner, or that's just not going to happen because it's too big of an idea. And I love the idea, and I love writing too, so I get ideas for writing, and I'm like, I never have time to write because I don't have a job doing it, but I still love having the ideas. And the same thing with art. Like, sometimes I'll just have an idea for something for me or for someone else. I'll be like, man, I know this person would love this. I love doing funny art too. Like, for my friends, sometimes I'll do just ridiculous things. I could show some of this stuff if you want to see any of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, let's see it. It's funny you're bringing that up too, because because it's only been maybe half a month since I left kind of full-time stuff, and one thing that I've been struggling with, and I think maybe Scott is too, is triaging, basically going through all the things that are possible things that I could do, and then kind of prioritizing by the most urgent. And that's so hard for a creative because I'm mid graphic novel, and it'll make me I'll want to just deviate and do a painting or write or whatever. Yeah. And it's instead I have to kind of really keep on myself with that kind of stuff. I don't know how I guess as you're pulling that stuff up, maybe you could get into how you kind of juggle what is priority with the little time you have outside of your day job,
Priorities. You should see the lists I have on my phone. I have lists and lists and lists of various priorities, whether it's the grocery store, art that I'm doing, stuff I gotta get at Amazon. I gotta get contractors, whatever it is. I used to, when I was younger, I never did anything like that. I was just go with the flow. I'm just gonna do whatever I feel like. And as you get older, you just start realizing, man, like you feel like your life is gonna fall apart if you don't keep track of these things. And with art, it's not that different. Like you have to prioritize it too, and you have to.
Yeah.
I tried doing a graphic novel, and I ended up giving up on it.
How far did you get?
I really had like the whole thing planned out. I had all the characters designed and drawn up and their backstories written up. I had the first like 2 books written up, and then I had like I was maybe like halfway through the art through the first book, and unfortunately I had a divorce like right as I was doing that, and it kind of threw a whole wrench.
Yeah, that throws a wrench in a lot of things. Yeah.
And then I was like, and then so much time passed, and I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. I feel like now that I'm older, I'd want to just do something completely different. It's not even what I want to do, you know? So priorities change, and you can try to plan and control, but sometimes you just got to have fun, let loose, or practice. Like,
Yeah.
I was just going to say before I forget, and then I'll stop, but sometimes you just got to practice. Like imagine if you're a musician, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes as a musician, you're going to be like, you know, I like playing the drums. Like sometimes it's like, I'm just going to jam. Like I'm going to listen to some music and play along or just make something up on the spot. But then sometimes you're like thinking about it and you realize, you know, I'm not really good at these rolls, these drum rolls. Like I really just need to do that over and over and over until I get it down. And it's not fun, but it is more kind of productive. And it like, you got to do the same thing as an artist. Like lately I've been, you know, we're talking about like prioritizing all the things you think about. I've been thinking about like, on the one hand, I want to just do things that are fun, that I enjoy, that I want to do. But sometimes it's like, me personally, I need to work more on my speed lately. And so I know that to do that, I have to time myself and do really fast drawings over and over and over and over again to practice. Not as fun as like this illustration I did where I just took my sweet time with it. So yeah.
I agree with that, like about the practice thing. I think one benefit of graphic novels, by the end of this thing, you're gonna start your graphic novel again. I'm like a drug peddler. I get it's the worst decision you could ever make as a creative is to do a graphic novel, and I'm always trying to push them on people because it's just it's like the drug habit that come on kids, it's fun. But the one thing I'd say that's a benefit of a graphic novel, especially when you have a script, is it challenges you to have to draw like all kinds of things you don't want to draw, like backgrounds, like different angles, like different characters, different kind of boring things that you don't want to do.
That's
and it
so
does
true.
keep you sharp. Yeah.
And you learn how to cheat. You know what I mean? Like you're like, I am not like, for me personally, I am much better at characters than like environments.
Same here.
I can do both, right? That's like a lot of artists, right?
Yeah.
That's draw the person in the center. But you know, it's like, you know, you can do it, but you don't really want to do it. So you're like, how can I creatively cheat this? And so it's just enough that they know what's going on and it looks good.
Well, you set up your establishing shot, and then people know where you are, and then you can just add little hints.
Exactly. I've seen you do that with your comics back in the zombie ones back in the day when you were Broken Bold. You would do that. You'd have this.
I'm still working on it.
You still doing The Young and the Dead?
Yeah, I'm working on the last issue right now.
Yeah, he's close to done with the whole arc. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. But it's like I said, how long ago? 15 years. I was working on that first.
I don't know
issue.
though, Scott. Like, because you also do weird things where you're like, I'm going to set this in an arcade and draw the entire arcade. I like multiple angles.
I like drawing. I do like drawing backgrounds and stuff like that. I mean, for the most part, I don't necessarily. The thing I don't like necessarily crowd scenes. So, but I'll do them because, like, you know, there's a scene I just finish where there's just a horde of zombies, and it's a little easier than drawing regular people, but you know, but then I've got a bunch of scenes because it's the last issues. There's a lot of scenes where all the kids are together now. So
yeah,
and so I get to show all the kids because before they kind of separated. So I'm only drawing 3 of them at a time right now, but then they all get together, and then it's like, now I got to draw all.
And then you're like having to keep them all on model. You're like, what were they wearing again? Crap.
Well, and the model is kind of, I mean, since I've been working on it for so long, that what they look like in the first issue, kind of
Yeah.
they vary a little bit. I think they look older, even though it all takes place in the same day, basically.
Yeah.
So
That's like they're aging with you. Like all of a sudden they're 15 years older and they're like talking about going to the arcade and crap.
Well, and it's not intentional. It's just as when you first do, like if I showed the first sketches I did of each character, they look pretty different, and they've all got the same traits and things, but they do look a lot younger in that first original sketch. So, but yeah, I don't know,
Nice.
it's just weird. I don't know.
Do they look deader too? No, I'm just
No.
sorry. That's just the joke was just hanging there.
Younger and deader, yeah.
Yeah, no, I never draw crowd scenes, so I just wanted to say that never.
Oh
never in
yeah,
my
right.
life.
You just the one you just finished in that theater.
I
How long
hated
did that
that
take you?
panel. That was like
Yeah.
the panel that I'm like, why? Like the entire time, it took like a week to do that stupid panel. I had to draw an opera house with like 200 people in it, every single person.
Again, though, good practice.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like when you do the things you don't want to do, that's probably some of the best practice you can get.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've noticed for me.
I also think like, on what you were saying about, kind of not just like practice, but just like doing your own personal work, almost like for survival in the industry. I do think there is a difference. There's a notable difference that I've seen personally with artists who are working on their own personal stuff and artists that only do in-house stuff. And it usually affects the productivity and like the quality of the in-house stuff. So I really do think it's cool that you constantly are making, but I also wonder if sometimes, is that a healthy thing, or is that just something we all just do because we're all mentally unstable?
A little bit column A, a little bit column B. I think sometimes I don't do art for a while, and I'm like feel guilty, but I'm like, yeah, but I've been hiking and hanging out with my kids and going to like the water park and like, meeting people and making friends and stuff. Like,
no, that's interesting too. Like, so out of curiosity, since you work from home, because I had this problem prior to working in house, and I'm curious if it's going to re-arise. Do you have trouble turning off the art brain, like meaning like just clocking out? Because like I used to have that problem when I was full-time,
or also, or vice versa, do you have trouble with distractions and stuff? Because a lot of people do. I tend to be pretty focused on my art, but a lot of people get distracted with whatever else is going on. So
distractions, for sure, that can definitely happen. I mean, especially if you're like spending all this time working remotely and you're alone a lot. Like, you got to be your own boss. You got to be your own, like, you got to take control of yourself and your actions and be an adult. And that's hard for a lot of people in this day and age. I think, if you look back 50, 100 years ago, people would probably scoff at that kind of comment. But now it's like, in this kind of digital age we live in, we're a lot of people, it takes us a lot longer, I feel like, to grow up and really take control of our lives like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because back to the kind of the topic and everything, as far as like the freelance versus like a full-time art job. I mean, your job's kind of incorporates both in a way. Even though you're working for an employer, it's a full-time thing, you still, your daily habit is almost kind of like you're working from home. So it's, you kind of still like you said, you have to be your own boss, like a freelancer would, because you can't let, this show's on TV, I can't watch, I can't be distracted by that. I got to get stuff done and everything, and you got to stay focused.
Yeah, and it takes time to get used to, for sure. It's not something you're immediately going to get down perfectly, and you're never going to be perfect at that or anything else in your life, for that matter. But it's I mean, you get better, and you just got to kind of pat yourself on the back every time you notice that. And and just since I brought up this topic, before I forget, I want to kind of bring up like the pros and cons that I've been thinking about between freelance and having a job.
Nice.
So, and then you guys can jump in and add anything, but just to start it off, I would say biggest pro of freelance, you have control for the most part. Yeah, someone else is paying you, but you can tell them to go shove off. You don't have to work for them. You don't have a boss. You're on equal footing because they need what you got, and you need their money. So it's a much more even playing field where you get to look at all these projects and then kind of choose what you want. Especially if you're selling your own merch and you're making good money off of that, then you can do whatever the heck you want, period. Like, you don't need anyone to tell you what to do whatsoever. And the flip side of that is sometimes it's feast or famine, and sometimes you just desperately will take any work that comes your way just so that you have money to pay the bills. And then, of course, then the flip side of that is being employed. There is no feast or famine with employment, but there's no real freedom. You can have little moments of freedom where they might give you more creativity and let you kind of steer the ship a bit, but in the end, they can veto anything you do, and they're going to critique every little thing. Every single time you do something, they're going to critique it and want to change it, and that can be frustrating. It usually does end up looking better, though, and you have a paycheck every couple weeks or month. You never have to worry. So I don't know. I'll just start it off with that.
Yeah, I think that's I think at least the implied security of in-house is like it's much more stable and kind of predictable. So I would definitely agree with that. But I would also say, yeah, the definite benefit of freelance, while it's like you're always what is it? There's like a Dylan song, you're always everybody's got to serve somebody, It's like and inevitably you're going to be serving somebody, whether it's, a client, like that, salespeople where you worked, like chased leads and got, or it's you who chased the lead and got that client, but you're still kind of, you kind of are beholden to the client. But I do agree there's the freedom. Like if you have a client you don't like and you're freelance, you have the freedom to be like, yeah, you go find someone else. Like, but this isn't working out.
What's interesting, Josh, is that also, that also can have to do with like what I'm doing with YouTube. It could be pleasing the algorithm.
Yep.
Because I'm constantly like trying to see what works with my videos to see what I have to do to get more views. So I know I was, I had shown some of the videos to you guys, and Corey had made some suggestions about, maybe previewing some of the stuff up front, what you're going to be working on to entice people so they kind of know what that's going to be. So I started doing that. And so I'm always, I'm looking at different things like, okay, is this thing I work? So it's kind of chipping away to find out. So it might, I don't want it to get, because if I could just do what I want to do and just do it for fun, and if people watch it no matter what, and if it grew no matter what, that'd be great. But that's probably not realistic. So wherever I arrive at could be something totally different than what I planned, and hopefully it's still something I enjoy doing. So it's weird.
Yeah, but like the thing that I like that Chris was touching on, and I think like maybe one of the nice things about your situation, maybe you can get into it. But it's like the nicest thing I think about like kind of working from home, especially freelance, is you can kind of choose your own schedule. That's also the downside of it. But it's like the idea that like if today I want to chase like paid work, but I want to do that at 1 a.m. until 1 a.m. I want to just work on my comic, I can do that. That's pretty cool. Where it's like most day jobs, your boss or whatever, unless I guess maybe you're working remote, won't be cool with you being like, I'm just going to work on my comic right now. And then like around 2 a.m, I'll get to what you're, working on. So that is one other nice benefit, is like being able to kind of chase your own stuff. But I'm kind of curious about that with remote work, Chris. Do you have a little bit of freedom in that sense, where like you have projects that you have to get done and you can kind of arrange your own time? Because you did mention like if you have, like electrician or something coming over, you're able to like go, okay, come on in, and that kind of stuff. But does that apply to like your own personal creative projects?
I mean, people are watching, so I don't want to be.
Oh, okay, got it.
I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I usually am on task working when I'm supposed to be working. Like, in all honesty, I'm not really spending a lot of time just effing off doing whatever I want. Oh, by the way, we're past that, like, what is the first 10 minutes? And, like, for the monetization, you were talking about pleasing the algorithm. Now we can curse and say all the non-PC stuff we want to say. Come on, guys, let's go.
You guys are free to curse. This is my stream.
Well, no, I'm curious about kind of what Josh had brought up, but not necessarily. I'm not saying not that you're screwing around when you're supposed to be working, but do you have the flexibility? Does that give you the flexibility? Like, say you have to put in so many hours. Say you have to put in 8 hours a day. Let's just say. Does that 8 hours, do you set a certain schedule? Like, I'm going to work on 8 hours in the morning, or do you break it apart? Do you like, okay, I'm going to work for like
basically, are you like doing a 9 to 5, or are you able
Yeah,
to
that's
kind
what I
of?
try to do. I mean,
Okay,
I try really hard, but sometimes, really, in the end, to be honest, all they really care about is that you hitting the deadline.
Yeah.
But they do like to be able to communicate with you. They don't want you just like going off and doing something that's not necessary and wasting time. And that does sometimes happen, unfortunately. And I try to work on that, but I think it's just kind of a difficult part of working from home is knowing when to go consult other people at the company about what you're doing instead of just being in your own bubble.
Got it. That's interesting. So I guess that would make sense because if you're working remote, I'd think they'd still kind of have you on like a typical schedule where it's like, okay, work starts here, you get out here, that kind of stuff. That's interesting. I love the idea. So do they quite often like communicate on Slack, or is that?
That's just like our main form. Trello and Slack are kind of our main forms. We also use Google Meet and Calendar, and sometimes we'll use other tools if it seems like it's going to help. But yeah, I mean, generally we use Slack to communicate quickly. It's a really good program.
Should we get into some other benefits versus negatives of freelance versus full-time?
Yeah, you got any others?
Well, I got one. I mean, that a lot of people mention, and it is somewhat true. It's health insurance. Insurance is a huge benefit with the group negotiations that you can get through working with a business. Like, obviously, there's more people being insured, so you can get better packages for your team.
Unless you have a lot of unhealthy people in that company.
Sorry,
what was that, Corey?
Unless you have a lot of unhealthy people in that company.
That's true.
Working in a place, how do I say this without, since we're live? I was working at a place where, let's say maybe like 30% of the people were like visibly unhealthy, and our insurance rates were pretty high.
I like that. Might be a good suggestion if you're applying for a job. Just kind of take a peek around at like how everyone looks there. Be like, I don't know, maybe I don't want this for insurance.
I will say that the place I'm working at now, there's kind of a self-filtering where there's like no smoking, no drinking, because it's like a religious institution, and our rates are pretty good.
Yeah, they don't even have to ask a question on your thing.
It depends on how well your company's doing. Because, like, I've had situations where I've had no health insurance, amazing, incredible health insurance, and just kind of varying in between. So, and it can change while you're at the company.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Just don't think just because you got a job that you're set and it's always going to be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's true. They kind of re-up every year usually at these places, and depending on the finances of the company, those things can change. Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
No, I was just saying I was working at a place where it came down to, are we going to make payroll or keep having health insurance?
Oh,
and so we had, and they had been in business for close to 30 years.
Yeah.
And so health insurance went away. And then a year and a half later, it came back. And they could do it. So yeah, that can happen where it kind of swings a little bit.
Well, and Chris is bringing up a really good point, which is like there's like a kind of like, I always like to say it's almost like a false sense of security of a full-time job, because you know, at the end of the day, like most places, at least in California, are at will employers. So like you could go in and be fired tomorrow, like for no reason. At least most places that in California,
Arizona like that. I
yeah.
don't know
And,
if California isn't like that. Then if California is like that, I don't know any states that.
yeah, I don't think
be.
any states. I don't think any state's going to be more kind of
There
like
are-
pro union than Cali, but I don't know.
There are
Maybe.
a handful.
I know, yeah, Arizona, they call it a right to work state.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is I love how they name stuff. It's just like come up
You
with
have a
these
right
names
to
that's the
be
exact
fired.
opposite. of
Right
what
to
the
work,
names-
which means right to get fired.
Citizens
Yeah.
United. You know,
That's
it's Citizens United is
They
corporation.
try to
crap.
make it almost sound like union names, so you're like,
Yeah.
oh, they got the workers back, and it's like usually, yeah, some kind of thing that's gonna take away, you know. But anyhow, my point is, it can be a somewhat false sense of security, and for anybody out there who's like considering freelance, even though like right now I'm kind of in that transitionary period, I've done freelance before in the past and been insured. Like it is possible to actually just pay for your own insurance. Like that's how you're usually insured through your employer. It can be a little more expensive if you want like one of the like real like Cadillac plans or something, or you want to be like with Kaiser or something like that. If you're not negotiating as a group, but like Corey pointed out, that can vary depending on where you work and stuff like that as well. But that is, I think it's an important thing to bring up if we're talking about freelance versus full time, because I actually think that's kind of a myth. While there's some truth to it, I think that's a myth in the sense that you can still have like insurance by just paying for it. It's not, and nowadays with you know more affordable healthcare programs than were available when I was freelancing, that's kind of cool. So
Yeah,
but-
you just got to plan it out, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're because you're working for yourself if you're freelance, so you got to do more of that adulting I mentioned earlier. You got to be real responsible.
yeah, you're your own sales team, your own marketing team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's an added difficulty to the freedom that you get from freelance. Like that's the downside. Yeah, you get all that freedom. You get to pick whatever insurance you want. You get to pick the projects you want. You get to work whatever hours you want. All this great freedom, but then you have all that responsibility, just like the Aunt May and Uncle Ben said, right?
Yeah.
Well, also,
My-
I mean, the
my
big thing with
uncle-
the. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Corey,
my uncle used to say, when you work for yourself, it's great because you only work half days and you get to choose which 12 hours it is.
That's actually a really good quote.
Half days. Yeah, 12 half a day. Yeah.
That's true. I mean, and usually, you know, with freelance, typically you're not just doing the work. I mean, if you have a full-time job, I mean, they're bringing the work to you. You've got to go out and find that work. So that takes. That's the thing. That's the thing, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, like,
you have to be a. In addition to being an artist, you've got to be a business person for the most part.
yeah, basically, if you've ever worked anywhere and you think about all the different facets of that workplace, like you're literally your own HR, your own accountants, your own sales team, your own marketing team, you know, and like that sounds cool because it's a lot of freedom, but you're right. Chris was dead on about that. That's a ton of weight to carry.
Yeah,
And it gets really awkward when you have to report yourself to HR.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like,
you got
I
to
made an
report to
inappropriate
yourself.
joke to myself, and I'm really offended.
I feel uncomfortable with how
I don't like the
myself
things
earlier.
that Chris has been looking at like, on his computer lately. It's the things he leaves up on his monitor are very offensive.
And that's when you've been like working from home a little too long, and like, you know, the significant other comes in and goes, okay, this is time to get out of the house for a second.
Yeah, it's I shudder to use like the buzzwords, the business buzzwords. I really every time I hear them it makes me cringe, but like you have to wear many hats.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
And then we can circle back though to the
More business
just using one of those buzzwords.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, circle back. What is it?
Put a pin in it.
Yeah.
You know, we just put a pin in the pros and cons. Let's circle back to that pin. And,
Okay, but how does that scale? Like, that's what I'm curious about, is how does that
oh
scale?
God, yeah.
I mean, if we're thinking about this on a vertical, right? Let's just think about
like the
let's think
acronym,
about the most
acronyms,
cost effective.
Has anyone heard of FOMO yet? I just learned of that one this last year.
Oh yeah, I know FOMO. Yeah, fear of missing out.
I've got to send you guys. I've got to send you guys a couple clips. There's this girl who does. I don't know what you would call it. It's poetry video essays sort of.
Uh-huh.
And she does one about business buzzwords and like circle back and stuff. And it's so.
Well, there's a Weird Al song called what is it called? I forgot what it's called.
I think it's called Buzzwords.
Oh
No,
yeah,
it's not called Buzzwords.
Yeah.
It's,
but it uses all the corporate jargon.
I
Yeah,
forgot what it's called.
it almost sounds like a legalese
mission
like,
statement. I think it's called
Yes.
mission statement. Yeah. So Google mission statement by Weird Al. It's just it's hilarious.
It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
there's a really popular YouTube video where it's like some joke skit. It's so funny. They use all of the buzzwords in it. It's just, if you Google it, the corporate buzzwords, it's like the top result. And it's got
Nice.
like 17 million views or something.
Oh, Thomas pointed out a really good one in the chat. Synergy.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
one.
yeah.
That
Oh
that's-
yeah,
yeah.
synergy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you got to learn terms that are actually important, and they're not like buzzwords, but a lot of people don't know them.
Like interior jargon. Yeah.
SEO. How many people know what SEO is?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you guys probably all know. I don't know if
Yeah,
everyone watching
search
knows
engine
what
optimization.
SEO is. That's search engine optimization.
Mm-hmm.
That's like using quixotic in a sentence on just walking down the street and talking to a stranger. It's like not something you normally talk about.
Well, what's tough too is when you're trying to explain. Like, I kind of understand because, like, I've also had times where I've had to explain to somebody SEO, and you're trying to explain why it's important. They've never heard of it. That can be tough too. So it's like, but yeah, the acronyms are really tough. But I always kind of forgive it a little bit because I think there's a lot of weird art acronyms that we use, or like if I'm talking about like to a non-artist, usually they'll look at art and be like, "Can you make it pop?" And you're like,
"Oh yeah,
do you want like a more value contrast? Do you want like a better hue, or like is it like what like are you talking about more of like a figure foreground contrast, or
just
like,
make it cool, make it like more sweet, like make it badass."
Yeah.
And put an
just
ombre
take
on
this
that.
and make it cool, and you're like, I thought it was cool.
Josh, can you put an ombre on that, Josh?
I worked at a place. This is a great one. I worked at a place once where all the sales team were calling gradients ombres for some reason for like a week on their art requests, and
it's a hair dye style, right?
And so I would like review these requests to see, because I'm like just divvying them out to my team, and I'm like, an ombre? Like, what's an ombre? And like, it took us like a week to find out, but finally we realized like one salesperson had gotten their hair done, and they call like gradients in hair ombres. But after that, for like a month, we were making jokes with like, I think Trump had a thing he had said about bad hombres, and so we were like, when you make your hombres here, make sure you're not making bad hombres. Like, it was the dumbest. But yeah,
speaking of hombres, like our company now treats those like they're the plague. Like it's so funny because I remember when I like gradients first came out, it was like so cool. Like, oh, you vector, you can make like shading and different like gradients of colors.
Yeah,
cool. And then now people are like, it's so passe, like it looks so bad, and like
I'm not a fan of gradients too much.
I mean in certain situations,
yeah.
But you gotta be subtle with it for sure. I used to overdo them. I will admit that.
Yeah, I did a live stream I think last week where I was going through children's menus, and I was pointing. There was one of them that just every single thing had a gradient on it. Every character, and it was all like, it was all like a radial gradient or just a straight. It's just like, oh yeah, this is.
Wait, which one? What was the company?
Oh, so I was doing a video. I used to collect children's menus just because I was doing stuff like that, puzzles and games. So I would just, if I took the kids out to eat, I'd take a children's menu. So I had a collection. And so I did one video where I recreated this Jenny's children's menu. So usually I'll put out an edited video, and then the following week I'll do a live stream that has something to do with it. So I just broke out all my children's menu, and I was just kind of sharing them, going through them, and talking about things I liked. And there was an Applebee's one, and every single thing was a gradient. It was like, oh, it's so bad.
Applebee's, what year was this?
I don't know. It was in the probably in the late 90s, early 2000s.
I made that menu, dude.
Yeah, sure you did.
Wouldn't that be awkward? Where you're like, it was like the crappiest illustrated man, and you're like, well, yeah.
I would have known about that. You would have mentioned that at some point, because that would have been the same time we were working together. So I don't think, yeah, it would probably been about the same time. As it was when my kids were younger. So
well, I just don't like the company I work at. When I first
probably the last time I've been to an Applebee's.
When I first worked at the company I worked at, I would just show them variations, just options of like, you could do this, you could do that, and they liked all the gradient stuff. They said it looked more 3D, and I would try to place them in ways where it made it pop and stuff. And now when I look at it, I'm like, I hate this. So bad.
I mean, there's certain situations where even you can do full illustrations, all gradients, if you know what you're doing. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just people that just use stuff just to use it because it's available and don't have a reason behind it. That's kind of what, like with the early comic book coloring, when people first started coloring comics in Photoshop, they would just use every single thing there was, lens flares, everything. Yeah. Oh, let's do this. Let's do on everything. And it's just like,
oh god, the lens flares.
Yeah, like all the optics, everything shined. Yeah. Like it was like that Steve Olaf look or whatever.
Remember when Liquify first came out, and everyone's like, "Oh, now my friend Bob has big boobs," and like, "Oh, check out his monster face now," and it's like all over everything.
Well, and now it's all AI. Everything looks AI. It's like. But
did you see?
Let's not get into that one.
That's the future. It's not going to get old at all.
Corey shared a video.
No, that's true.
Corey shared a video that Titmouse made that we are not going to play on here, so we don't get a copyright strike. But it's basically like an animator who's in the future, animating in the future, and they're like in a tiny little cube of a room with like a bed in it. And there's like this injection thing that comes from the wall and like drugs them. And all they're doing is like, okay, cool. The coins are available. Okay, now I'll log in. And then it's like prompt. Draw me a butt. Draw me a butt pooping or something like that. And then it's like, it just gets more ridiculous. And then finally at the end, he's like, gets really depressed and the drug just hits him in the neck and he like perks up again and lays down on the bed curled in a ball like this isn't happening. And he's like stops and he goes, oh, computer, play that on loop. And then he goes back to just
and as they pan up, Corey probably noticed this part, but as you pan up you see the camera, of course, just it's a little box, but
yeah, I've seen their cartoon. I'll look that up. Yeah, well, I don't want to get too much into AI, but I do want to say I've been thinking that the future of art is going to be every artist uses AI in some manner, and we still know how to make art, and we still make art, but we use AI to speed up the process like any other tool. And my dream is like, you're talking about making graphic novel. Like, I want AI where I design everything. I come up with all the ideas. I come up with the story and the characters, and I draw the characters, and I'm like, this is what everything should look like. This is what the environment, the characters, this is the atmosphere and all this stuff. And then you tell it, you give all these instructions and you spell everything out and describe it to the AI. And then you tell it, okay, now in this scene, I want to see the characters running across here up this bridge. And in this scene, I want them fighting each other. And then it generates a bunch of images for you until you got something you like. And then you maybe rework it a little bit, but it could save you like thousands of hours. And you're still being creative. Like you're still the one behind, like you're still deciding what goes in there. You're still creating and designing all the original stuff.
Yeah,
that's actually interesting. Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be at some point, if you can use it like in a closed, like kind of what Chris is talking about, where it's working with your style and it's not taking that and giving it to other people and all that kind of stuff. So,
that's going to be, I think that's eventually going to get squashed. I think eventually, like, our company stays away from AI because of
Yeah,
that.
well, companies have to because they don't know if they're going to get sued. So, I mean, larger companies,
Well, and the
they
copyright office has specifically said that you can't copyright it.
right.
So you don't even own the copyright to the AI work that you've made.
So, like, if you generated a graphic novel with AI, then technically, like, you wouldn't be able to copyright it. So, like, anybody could print your comic. That's
Well,
crazy.
this is in the future,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's all
So
speculative.
maybe you could in the future, but it's not there now. It's so far off from being able to do that yet.
I read an article that ChatGPT is potentially going bankrupt because they're spending about like $700,000 a day to keep it running, and
Yeah,
they have no way
they've
of generating
talked about
income.
that when they did the congressional hearing. They had the CEO there, and he repeatedly was saying like, "This is free. We don't charge for it, and we were not prepared for the server space required for this. Like,
Right.
this is not a business model. Like, do not follow us."
Yeah, he's got that Microsoft money, but not everybody does. Which makes
But
it
it's still, someone will come in and either buy the company and give them billions of dollars,
Yeah.
or help fund the company because it's so important. It's so like useful and groundbreaking. I mean, there's, unless another company comes up with something that's better, then they're screwed.
Nice. I don't know what this is referring to, but I love that Thomas mentioned all the wipes and the old video editors, like the Star Wipe.
Yeah. Well, he's talking about what we were talking about, like radiance and overused things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You know what is funny is that's kind of stuff is coming back too. That kind of retro, because it's funny.
Yeah.
And it keeps things more interesting and unique to throw in that kind of kitschy stuff.
Yeah. Or like a bad VHS look. Like it's like
Yeah,
just
I was
kinda
just
fun.
watching. I watched a movie on Netflix called "They Clone Tyrone," and it's weird. It's
Oh,
kind of like this.
I want to see that. Is it good?
Yeah, it's like a blaxploitation kind of sci-fi mystery, social commentary. It takes place. I think it takes place in modern times. I don't think they specifically said, or maybe even the future. But it's got a very grainy look to it. So they put this kind of whole filter over it and everything, and it looks very kind of 70s and everything. So, but yeah, I see that kind of stuff all the time, whether in film or whether even in comics. I think I know now. I mean, there's the point where everything in the 90s, like all that image stuff was so popular, and then kind of, like I said, it kind of fell out of fashion, like all these crazy effects. But if you want to create something that looks like that, if you're trying to capture that, whether it's just an homage or a parody or something, you're gonna purposely take all of those old techniques and bring them back because you want it to look like that.
Hey, I got a quick question for you guys.
Yeah.
It's a Photoshop question. There's so much about this program I feel like you can never truly master it all. And if you guys want to, we could even get into more of like the process of how we do this stuff. But do you guys know if they have like a favoriting option for brushes, like where you can star them or something, where
So they just updated that recently because you used to have to use a plugin called Toolbox.
Okay.
But now you can go in and you can actually they've added the functionality that existed in 2004, just like 6 months ago. So now you can drag and drop. So like I have, can I zoom in? Let me see.
Oh, is that what these are up at the top here? These are like my most used brushes up here.
It depends on how you organize it, but you have what I do is down at the bottom of that you can have your folders, right? And then I've added folders. So let me go.
Yeah, can you share your screen? I want to see that.
Yeah, so you look down at the bottom here. I have main brushes, and these are the categories that I use most of the time. And then I bought some brushes from this thing that are categorized this way, and then I have like the Kyle Webster stuff. But anything from either of those other groups that I find myself using frequently, I'll either go in and adjust it with your brush settings and then save a new brush, or you can save a copy of it here. And so
Awesome.
I've got pencil, drawing, inking, painting, halftones, hash, scribble.
See,
Right. And so I can jump into any of these. And if I wanted to create another one, then I could click this one, come in, make a new brush based on the settings that I've got, name it, and I can put that in whatever folder I want. So that way you have basically drag and drop organization. So there's not
So
like
you just gotta make new folders. You can't like star them or something.
no, but you can search them by name. And so I could come up here and like
Oh,
and
that's
search like pencil, and then it
a good
eliminates everything that
idea.
doesn't have the word pencil in it.
I saw that up there before, and I just forgot was even there.
Yeah, so but it's really
Awesome.
that's like a that's an
So let me
update
use it
for
right
this
now.
year.
I saw
Yeah.
that this was chalk 23, and so I would take this and then select it, and then you say duplicate it. Is there a hotkey for duping it by any
I
chance?
don't believe so.
Do you have to right click it?
If you just go down next to the new file
Or go to
thing,
brush settings, right? You click on
yeah,
this.
so you go to brush settings, and then that puts you in that category, and in the lower right hand corner you can press the
You
plus
click that
button,
button.
and it'll save those as a new preset brush.
And then, but if this brush is so far down, like how do I even get it into that other folder?
You can, I can't remember. Hold on, just let me see.
Because I could drag it up like this. I guess it goes pretty fast. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I
Wait,
think
where's my folder?
I think it is.
My
Just
folder
dragging it up.
disappeared.
Oh, it looks like you just rearranged them. I don't know if they stay that way, but
Okay,
Yeah,
the
they
folder
still
went to the bottom. I guess new folders go to the bottom.
Yeah. And it's
Okay.
the
It would be
folders-
nice. Like it seems like wouldn't it? Doesn't seem like it'd be super easy to just have a little star, like so you can
Yeah.
have like your favorite brushes have stars on them, the ones that you use a lot.
Yeah.
Or like if you star them, have it actually just be the instantly shortcutted brush or something.
Yeah,
The problem.
I mean, that
the
seems
problem
like smart to me.
The problem is code debt, right? You've got 25 years worth of. They're building on a foundation of code debt, and so to make, like, that's why Procreate and Affinity and those guys were able to just like right out of the box just be like, boom, we're here, and they showed up hard and fast on the iPad, and it took Adobe forever, is because they're inheriting the mistakes and the lack of foresight of decades of programmers. And so to be able to fix something or add something, it's kind of like your house that you just bought. It's way easier to build a house correctly than it is to be like what I just did.
Yeah.
And realize that for some reason in my stupid house, I have no idea what would cause them to do this. This makes no sense to me, but all of my doors are 2.5 inches shorter than standard doors.
That's lovely.
Is it an older house, maybe?
I mean, if you consider like late 90s older, so it's not like
No,
1950s.
my house is almost 100
maybe it
years
just
old.
had an unusually short resident.
But here's the thing that's really weird. The doors are pre-hung doors.
And a
so
great
you would
band.
literally have to buy the frame with the door already at the correct size and cut it down and put it in the house.
Maybe
It
they
makes-
imported them from like a different country.
I mean, I guess if you had the money, you could expand the size of them all. It's, like,
Yeah, but
I'm
they
sure
were
it's
in-
possible,
it's
but
possible, but
that's such like an annoying hassle to deal with.
Right.
That's
code. So that's code debt, right?
Yeah.
Is I can retrofit
Right.
the security door that I just put on my back door by having to like kind of do some weird kind of Mickey Mouse stuff to get that in there.
Yeah.
Or I can fix the code debt that's built into the house by
Which is
actually tearing into the wall,
way more
and
complicated,
reframing the entire structure.
Oh my goodness. That's actually a really good description of that. And also I guess like a lot of the code debt wouldn't necessarily even be a mistake. Like it could also be maybe it's a house that's built in the Victorian era, so it's got like gas lines for lights. And then like suddenly you're in a different era where we don't use gas lights anymore. So now we have to get rid of all the gas
we just do
piping
gas
throughout
lights
the
and-
house.
Well, think about what happened with Flash, right?
Yeah.
So Adobe purchased Macromedia, which
Are we talking about Flash the program, or are we talking about Paul Pate?
It depends on whether you need to report yourself to your own HR or not. But Flash the program, it was part of the Macromedia suite. It was purchased by Adobe specifically so that they could kill it, and they developed a software called I think it was Edge Animate, which is one of the best animation softwares that has ever been produced. It was slick. It spit out HTML5 and JavaScript like super smooth, so you didn't need like a Flash plugin or anything. Everything was native in the browser. It was amazing, and it made so much sense. And then they developed that concurrently with the purchase of Flash, but then they found out that you've got a bunch of Jim Luhans out there that have Stockholm syndrome with Flash, and everybody had been like, become comfortable with the weird nuances of like old code. And so it was more difficult to get tens of thousands of Flash animators to transfer to a UI UX that actually makes sense than it was to just kill Edge Animate, rename Flash as Animate CC, and add JavaScript and HTML exporting. So Animate CC is nothing but just a mutated version of Flash.
You know what developers call that, though? They call that legacy.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure, you probably have heard that too, but,
yeah.
I work with developers a lot. We have more developers than anything else in our company. And so both my parents are engineers, or were before they retired. And my mom was specifically a coder. So, I picked up a lot of the lingo and how things work. And we have that problem right now at our company. It is a huge problem where we have to weigh our options of, we always want to revamp things and make new things, but we're like, we don't have enough time. We need to make more money now. So we have to it's like the house analogy. It's or let's say you just broke your leg, and it's like, well, really what you got to do is put a cast or a boot on it and let it, and to stay off it, let it heal for a month. But hey, you're also an NBA player and you're the best one on the team, and they want you to go out there and play right now. So let's just put a splint on it, maybe a few screws in there, tape it up, and get your butt out there and start playing basketball.
Yeah, the injection of Novocaine, and we'll just deal with the problem later because we're in the middle of the game right now.
Novocaine for the soul.
Yeah, and I think it's got to be a hard thing to juggle. That actually kind of makes me curious, Chris. When you're working in game design, because I've done art for books, for different promotional products, for all kinds of things, and I've done maybe a little bit of app art for Freelance, where it was a panoramic illustration or something. But what kind of considerations do you have to do for the programs that are being used, apps or whatever it is that are running these games? What kind of considerations as an illustrator do you have to kind of put into your daily practice outside of just what an editorial illustration or an illustration for the web or something? Is that too complex?
There's probably a lot of back and forth with developers, really. Because as an artist, you're not going to know everything. Yeah. That's not your specialty. That's theirs. And if they want to understand how to implement the art, and they want to know what your vision is, because if they look at something, they might think it looks fine. You look at it and you say, that is not how that animation is supposed to look. It's completely broken. And they're like, well, it looks okay. And you're like, no, it's supposed to look great. That looks terrible. And then you have to work with them. You won't be that rude when you talk to them. You'll be nice about it. It would be respectful, but there's a back and forth. And sometimes I'll just be sitting in a meeting with a developer and I'll be like, okay, so here's something that I can do on my end. What can you do on your end? And then you start to learn bits and pieces more from each side. They get your limitations, you start to get their limitations, and you start to realize more and more, you don't need to ask as many questions.
Yeah.
But it's always changing too. And I even hesitate to call myself a game designer or game design, because I think of that as a person who is kind of an artist and does some art, but they are more focused on designing a game.
Yeah.
Where they come up with the logistics, the stats. If it's a game where you level up, they figure out what are the skills going to be, what are the talents going to be, what are all the numbers when you deal damage, and how do you level up, and they come up with all that kind of stuff. I would call myself maybe more a game artist or something.
Yeah.
Game animator, game illustrator, that sort of thing. Character artist.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That actually sounds kind of cool. Yeah. Sounds more interesting than game development. To someone like me who likes to draw, that sounds way more fun than game development.
Well,
The
game
development
development is very interesting too. One of my good friends, I actually did work for him recently. I could even show the freelance I did for him. He's working on a game that I was making some illustrations for him, and he's fucking incredible. Pardon my French, but he is not specifically an artist.
Yeah.
He's a game designer. And I don't want to shout out who he works for, but it's a big company, one of the biggest, and he's very good at what he does. And he ascended very quickly. He's very smart, very talented, and he makes his own games. And he does the coding. He fixes the bugs. He makes the animations. He makes the characters and
That's
the art,
cool.
everything. Wow. He does everything. He makes an entire game all by himself. And then he'll come to someone like me and be like, hey, I want to have like portraits of the characters where they're talking to you or something. And maybe they could animate even and talk to you or whatever. Like, and he's like, that's not my forte, but he'll do everything else.
Wow.
So like a game designer is kind of a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
If they're really good at what they do, they know how, like, they're not really a developer. They're not really an artist. They're not really a designer, but they can do all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just saying for my own personality, your side of the spectrum sounds more interesting to me just because it marries what I know. Obviously it'd be cool to be able to make your own games from like the ground up. That would be an incredible skill. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, you know the guy I'm talking about, Scott. You remember Kyle?
Yeah, I think
Kyle Barrett.
Yeah.
He's in California now, working for a very, very high profile company, making the buco bucks.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So, Corey, I had a quick question. Is that like a PE jump rope that's the border of that phone?
Oh, it looks like it, doesn't it? That's
yeah.
just,
I'm looking over there every once in a while. I want to know what is going on. Can you describe what you're doing?
I'm playing. I'm in a bit of. I'm writing a novel right now, so I'm in a bit of an visual artistic rut.
I didn't know
And
about it.
so, yeah, I haven't really talked about it. But yeah, these are just the different. So all the different Samsung and iPhone shapes and sizes, and so I just layered them on top of each other.
Oh, okay. So that's okay. That's just okay. I get it.
Yeah, so I'm just using that because generally, if I keep things out of like this spot, it's good for Samsung, and
Right.
upper left is good for iPhone, and so if I keep important things, it's kind of like just a cheating way of doing a safe area.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
it looks like one of those plastic PE jump ropes.
Right.
So what
yeah.
are you working on? You said you're an artistic rut, and what is it specifically you're making?
So I'm just doing collages of past art mixed with ancient, 15th, 16th, and 17th century woodcuts. So I'll use like stuff that I've done here, and then I'll mix it with I don't have it pulled up here, but I'll mix it with like scanned in stuff like Hogarth and other things, so that I can do.
Sounds
these
pretty
types of
cool.
things. Yeah, it's
very unique. It's kind of like reminds me of like it's kind of like you're doing like collages.
Yeah.
Or,
so like so like this one has, well, these two have stuff that I drew, and then I'll do kind of just collage stuff in the background. Like this one has stuff that I shot on a trip that I went to Creative South with Scott. There's an old radio museum that we went to, and I shot a bunch of that stuff. And
that's cool.
Yeah, this one has a bunch of those kind of. I like Shakespeare a lot, and so this has like old wood engraved illustrations of illustrated Shakespeare books from the 15th century, and then
that's an actual illustration from Shakespeare.
So the
background.
cat is something that I drew, and then
I was gonna say that cat looks crazy for being in
right.
Yeah, that's when Shakespeare was in his 3 eyeball stage.
Yeah, I'll show you what I'm talking about.
He was in what, like the 16th century,
I think the
1600s,
16th.
1600s.
1600s, I think.
Yeah, 17th century then, right? Because
So
it's
here's a
always like
bunch
going
of-
ahead.
Yeah, so here's a bunch of here's a bunch of just stuff, etchings from different like Shakespeare plays that people
Yeah,
have done.
1564 to 1616.
Ah, so I was right on both accounts then.
Yeah.
Woo,
Yeah.
yay me.
Yeah, so I'll take like, like there's a little cherub up here at the top that's being covered by the Artcasters logo. I'll take that and incorporate it, or like a piece of somebody's hand or something. And then also I went and scanned a bunch of old books. I can kind of get into places because I can say, "Hey, I'm a professor," and then whatever.
You know,
So I
it
went to
kind of
this-
reminds me of I don't know if you are art history buff much, but it kind of reminds me of like Dada art and like the like Cubist movement. They did a lot of like collages of things. Like I remember Picasso did a lot of those, and he would do this kind of similar thing to what you're doing, where you just put this like you'd have like a message behind it maybe, and it would look real bizarre and really cool.
I think you need to do a Dada phone case. It would be like a case that doesn't actually hold your phone. It would be maybe like a
Like
tackle
you
box.
literally have the case as the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Meta,
Yeah.
bro.
Yeah,
I love Dada so much.
This is my.
I'm a nerd.
Yeah, it's so like I remember my favorite one was it was just a snow shovel, and the title was like broken leg or something.
Yeah, that's so great.
Yeah, and so you're like thinking like, oh, so they're like you have to think about like why is it called that? What happened? What's the story? And like, it's absolutely absurd artwork, but that's what makes it so fun.
If anyone's bored out there, you guys should look up Marcel Duchamp's like manifesto that he wrote. It's online, like available, but it's basically the manifesto is like we're gonna make an art movement that makes fun of the art world.
Yeah,
and it is so great. Like but
and didn't
yeah,
he call it Dada because that word kind of meant like, ooh, like Dada, like it's so fancy, like
exactly.
We're so great and we're geniuses.
And he actually did like an interview with people where he was saying at some point, like he kept promising, he's like, at some point I'm going to make a toilet that I'll just sign and date, and it won't even be my name, and it's going to be in an art museum and be priceless. And everybody was like, I don't know if you're going to get there. And then eventually, he makes the fountain, which is a toilet.
That is
in an art museum.
Yeah, he did.
I love it.
Remember that? Yeah, he did that. That was so funny. And he did the Mona Lisa where he did like one little change to it and then signed it.
Yes.
And like sold it as his own art.
I love it. I feel like it's like the punk rock of the art history.
Oh, hell yeah. It definitely is like punk rock art. If we get into talking about these programs we work in and the process at all, like
do it.
So do you ever use Clip Studio Paint, Chris?
Yeah, we were talking about that.
That's right.
We were both talking about how much we love it.
Did you do the line art in there, or?
Yeah, this is inked with Clip Studio Paint.
That's what I do too, because I know you can color in Clip Studio, but I always color in Photoshop just because I'm used to it. But I always do all my line art in Clip Studio.
So I just, as an example to anyone who's watching right now, I'm zooming in on these lines, and you can see they're tapering off and getting thin and thick, and it looks very similar to if like you naturally drew this with like a brush pen or something. Like it looks like hand drawn, and you can't get that very well in Photoshop. I'm gonna try real quick and see what happens if I just make a layer here and try to do that.
Yeah, it's just not as smooth as that
I
G
mean,
pen.
look at the ends. Oh, there's like a bulge on some of them randomly. There's like some of them just blob. And this is same drawing tablet, same computer, same monitor. Nothing has changed. It's just Photoshop. And you could really go slow and then maybe start to get it to look like how you want. And, I still use Photoshop. I'm using it right now. I like it for all the freedom of what you could do with it. There's just so many ways to manipulate your image, and I'm used to it. And I mean, I can still come in here if I'm like, oh, I don't like this little line there. I can come in here and still like, it's locked right now, but I could still push the wrong button. I can still like ink over it.
Yeah.
But to get these nice looking lines, I can do this quickly and easily in Clip Studio Paint without even trying. Like, it just flows naturally, and it's got its own settings for how it tapers the lines and the thinnest thickness, pressure sensitivity, all that. So it's like freaking awesome for comic book stuff.
That sounds really cool.
I could paint this whole thing in there. I just know what brushes I have. I have like 300 brushes in here, and I know what they are. And so I use Photoshop, and I know because I know how to use those. But I have painted things. Here, let me pull up one that I painted entirely. Did it in Clip Studio recently for a friend of mine. He is a scuba diver instructor, and he gets people certification for their scuba diving. And he wanted me to do like art for his company. And I owed him some artwork. I told him I was going to do something for him. Just ask. And let's see. So this one was done entirely in Clip Studio Paint.
Okay, so you have colored in Clip Studio. Yeah, I've never colored in it. I've just
yeah. I mean, look at this water. It's really cool.
Yeah.
This is like a brush in Clip Studio. And there's like texture on different things. The moon, this was like this watercolor brush or something that looked cool. So you can get some cool effects with it. But a lot of times I like to bring it into Photoshop just because I'm more familiar and I can work faster in it. But it is very similar to Photoshop. It's got a lot of the same. Here, I can even open it.
You can open a PSD in Clip Studio Paint
and save it as a PSD.
Yeah.
And it's got your layers here. Like if I'll save this picture and open it in there, and you can see it looks similar. It's got a bunch of the same hotkeys for things. Let's see, number 4. So now I'm opening that same file in here, PSD. It's like the same. It's got all the layers, all the names. I've got layers like locked and clipping into other layers and stuff, and it's got all that, folders, everything. And it's got this real nice color picker down in the bottom that you can change if you like a square or triangle, and like if you want hue, saturation, or like gamma or whatever, like all the different ones. And then there's like brushes. Let's see, let's see if I can get. Why is it not coming up? There it goes. It's got pens. The G pen is the fancy pen.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, that's the one.
I want that in Procreate, and then I might actually use Procreate, but I haven't been able to duplicate it.
So, just for example, now watch me draw a line. Like, now it's like, look at that.
Yeah.
It's doing what I want it to do now. So, none of those bulges and weirdness from before. And like the more I do it now, you've seen the smoother it's getting as I'm like kind of getting that muscle memory of how it works, the program. But it's like you get these super smooth lines that come to nice, crisp like points and stuff. And then they've got brushes and stuff that you can mess around with. Yeah, I have it set up where if I hit one key, it'll just start cycling through different things. There's even like pencils and charcoal. They got watercolor, India ink. This one's called paint, like gouache, oil, like they got all kinds of stuff. And then you can download stuff. They've got a community of artists that sell like brushes and all kinds of. There's 3D models in here. You can make cells for like comic books or graphic novels. All kinds of stuff. It's got 3D. It's got perspective stuff to help you nail your perspective. It's very cool.
That's awesome. I still haven't messed with Clip Studio yet. I'm gonna have to whenever I'm done with this this crazy.
Yeah, I'd say if you do another digital comic, Josh, you know, I'd play around with Clip Studio. Like
yeah, just the perspective stuff alone.
Oh yeah,
like just seems really cool. I also saw that somebody was showing that they have like 3D models too that you can.
Yeah, you can take 3D models, and there's 3D models you can bring in, and it's made. The thing about Clip Studio is it's made for making comics, whereas Photoshop is a photo editing tool that people are kind of trying to figure out how. I mean, finding ways to make it do other stuff, but that's not what it was designed for. Where Clip Studio was designed to make comics.
That's kind of exciting. I'm gonna have to mess with it. Right now, I can't because it'll just switch up the style.
Well, that was my thing. It took me so long because I'm like, well, yeah, but then I want to have to learn another program. But I'm just so glad I took the time and did. And it is a lot of the interface is similar to Photoshop. So.
Nice.
Here's another one that I inked in Clip Studio, and that guy Kyle that I was talking about. This was an artwork that I did for him. Kind of more like Americanized anime style or whatever you want to call it.
Is it bad that whenever I hear the name Kyle, I think of Tenacious D?
No, Tenacious D is awesome.
Because I always think of that, like, Kyle betrayed me and then he lied, tried to hide. And I died deep inside. Now you know the reason why. Anyhow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you guys want to start wrapping up? And then, and I mean, we can, I don't know what everyone's doing. We can hang out afterwards a little bit before we turn in, but yeah, we usually go for about an hour and a half, and we're getting a little over that. So I don't know if you want to go around. Is there anything, Chris, that you wanted to mention that we didn't get to?
I mean, if anyone's interested, I could talk about how I'm doing this, what I'm doing right here on this art. I mean, I talked about the inking, but if anyone wants to know like a little bit about the coloring process and stuff.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you've done quite. I mean, I'm digging the color scheme. It's just like, because I know when I do colors, I'll drop a color in and I'm like, I don't like that, and I keep changing it back. But it seems like you've already got in your head exactly which colors you want to use.
Not really.
No,
I'm just doing just like what you said. You just probably weren't watching. I will go in. Like what I like to do is I'll turn off all this stuff real quick and I'll show you like kind of the process real quick. But first, let me turn off these reference too. So first I'll just do like a black and white sketch. Hey, stop it. So I'll do like here's the sketch. Sorry. I also another thing I do is I copy the ink in case I mess it up.
Oh yeah.
So that's always a good idea to if you have something that's very integral to the artwork, to copy it over. It's always a good idea. So,
yeah, I do that too, because sometimes when I color, what I'll do is I'll go into the line art layer, select it, and then expand it, and then move to a different layer. And then I always, a lot of times I forget and I accidentally color on the ink layer.
You accidentally move it, you'll nudge it 10 pixels and then not notice that you've been painting for an hour and you're like, oh shit. And so you still got the original one and you can just plop it back on there. So this is like the sketch that I started off with. And then, then I do the ink. I did it in Clip Studio. Then what I will do is like what Scott said. First, I'll choose some kind of background color that I like, just to give me some kind of basis because you don't want to be coloring on just white, black or something, because then you put in your background color and you're like, this looks terrible with this background color, and you don't know where to go with your background. So that's one of the first things I think you should at least attempt some kind of background color that looks decent.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll usually what I'll do is I'll grab, like Scott was saying, I'll like go into the ink, and like one easy thing to do is to just select like the outside. And before I do this, the canvas is actually smaller when I'm starting out. It's like this big, right?
Yeah.
And so when I select it, it doesn't go inside any of this other stuff that's off the edge.
Yeah.
I make it bigger so that I can throw in like reference or colors or whatever I want to like quickly get to. I can just look at it and grab it and
Yeah.
just have it around the edges. And then, I will select it. Like, let's say, for instance, I'll do it like on just a section here. Like, you could like select this tail here. And like Scott was saying, you can even make a shortcut. I used to have a shortcut. I just haven't set it up again. But like you can expand this selection so that just to make sure it's like underneath your outline. So, and then you just make another like layer and then you fill it in with whatever the color is.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. Now you got a color there. And you can do that all over the place. You can like shift click and like do multiples of them.
Yep.
And that's one easy way to fill your art. You can also just do it by hand. I do that sometimes. It's a little faster even.
With the lasso.
Yeah, and the lasso. Yeah, you can use your lasso for real big area. I do that too. Like these wings, when I was doing that, I'll just... So what I do normally to start out is I get a whole selection of the entire thing.
Yep. One big flat color.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then do the whole expand or contract whatever thing. And then I'll just take that and copy it over, and start kind of taking away from it, chipping it away. And then as I'm making certain parts, like let's say I was making the body here, like originally these rock parts were not separate and like other things were not separate. And those I had on a different layer. So like I could just, since I already had this rock layer, I could just select everything in there and just cut it out of the body and then do stuff like that really quickly, making just a bunch of different selections to color in. And then I do these little clipping masks. I think that's what they're called. It's like you alt click. It's not like a mask like this one over on the right here where the layer says underbelly. That's like just like a regular old school layer mask that's been in Photoshop forever. But in the last like decade or so, they implemented this clipping mask thing where you just can make a layer over something and then alt click on the layer below. And then now anything that goes in there is going to stay in that layer, like as if that layer is a mask. And if you're not familiar with mask, it's like you have a piece of paper and you cut a hole in it, and what you're drawing on is only going to show up within that hole, like a window or something. So it just makes it very easy. Like when I'm doing all this red stuff, I'm using this brush that just makes like all these splotches, like, and it's really unruly and random. So, but since I have the layer mask, it's like I can really easily put these like around the edge. So that's kind of the whole process right there. And then eventually what I'm going to do, like if I were to show you that other artwork that I was working on that I said I did for Kyle, I'll do like maybe some layers that have light and dark. I'll have different levels of highlights, some that are much higher or lower. I'll maybe have 2 or 3 layers, maybe even more, depending on how detailed you want to get. This is more of like, I would say, a comic book style of painting versus you can do a more kind of traditional style of painting, like our man over here, the awesome, Pete Moorbach. Was I saying his name right?
Moorbacher, but yeah.
Now Moorbacher, I actually know how he does it because I've seen, he had like a video showing it. He does grayscale painting, so he paints this whole thing in grayscale, and I'm sure he probably uses clipping masks and things like that from time to time too, like to make it easier. But generally, he just kind of paints it with like a couple of brushes. He doesn't. You don't have to get crazy with all kinds of different brushes. And then what he'll do is he'll put like a color over it, and then he'll make like start making these like base colors, and it'll look something probably more like this, where it's kind of more like very simple, kind of dull colors. And then he probably didn't do a whole lot except for on the water and the background and a few highlights here on this one after he put the color in there on that grayscale. And then, but then if he wants something like really intense with the color, like this guy, then, you know, he's going to try to start with that red and make it look like how he wants it to look. And he's going to put this like layering effect, like I think they're called layer modes or something. It's basically right over here where it says normal, and you can change. And these are great, like overlay, multiply. Those are ones that probably get used the most because they're good for like highlights and shadows. Color is the one that he uses. And then what he'll do is this whole thing will be in just black and white grayscale, and then he'll put a red color over it. And if he doesn't like it, he'll just paint over it with new layers and get the color exactly how he wants. It allows him to start with this simple way of painting in just grayscale. Is very simple and easy to understand and quick. And then when he starts adding his colors, that's when he starts going bonkers.
That's awesome. That's actually funny. It's so interesting to me seeing coloring and the fact that like there's so much consistency with like everyone's approaches generally with this kind of stuff, because it's a little different than the way I do it, but relatively similar. Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say. There's enough similarity. It's weird because and I think a lot of that probably, I don't know about you, Chris, but I think I kind of figured out a lot of the stuff myself. I'm sure I watched some things or whatever, but it's funny how we kind of teach ourselves this stuff, a lot of this stuff, but it's still a similar technique. You know, it's just like that must be kind of, for the most part, kind of be the natural way, the best way to do it, because we kind of all arrived at a similar technique for a lot of this stuff.
Oh, and name your layers. I hate it when I see people working on stuff and it's like layer 438, and I'm like, it takes you like 2 seconds to just type like low light, like the one I just put in. So now I know.
I'm guilty of not naming my layers when I'm on a deadline sometimes, and I'm not working in house, because it's like, dude, no one's pulling this open except me. But then, like, you know, usually a year later, for some reason, I have to open the file, and I'm like, crap, I didn't name the layers. Yeah,
that's exactly what happens when I look at my old files too. And I didn't really start getting into layer naming until very like the last few years. Now I like religiously name. Unless you don't need to. Some layers, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like when I pull my reference, I'm going to name all my reference. I can see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty cool. I really do like learning about different people's process and how, you know, like I said, there's more, I think there's more similarities to the way that I work than that. But so I don't know, you guys want to, let's go ahead and start wrapping it up.
Sounds good.
And then, I will let everyone know. Oh, and then Gaz, Gaz said he tried using Clip Studio Paint and didn't really understand the perspective stuff. I'd stick with it, Gaz, because I mean, those perspective tools are awesome. I've got a tutorial on, just if you go to my Making Comics 101 playlist, go to the perspective one, and I've got a tutorial where I go in and I show how I do perspective in Clip Studio, and it's really, you know, once you get the hang of it, it's it's amazing. I mean, because you just set up these grids, these guides, and you're just drawing perspective. It automatically clicks to the guide.
That sounds great. Awesome. I haven't even tried it yet.
Oh yeah, those perspective tools are awesome.
Also,
one other thing I want to understand.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's hard to understand even when you're just like doing it on a piece of paper.
I was going to say the process that Chris just showed too, like if you can get flat coloring down and selections and figure out like aliased and anti-aliased, just some basic stuff like that, that can be the basis to build like photorealistic paintings from. If you have solid flats to work with, then you have flat selections that you can then like add texture and layer and paint to. So that like a lot of what Chris was showing like is that's the secret sauce right there. So thanks for sharing that, Chris. Yeah. Anyhow, that was all I wanted to add. Yeah.
All right. So Chris, I mean, usually we let people promote anything they got. You know, you don't seem like you. I mean, you're just kind of doing your stuff for fun. I mean, you do have your if anyone does want to go to Chris's website and check out what he's doing over there. But it's good to just have you on and catch up. And I know we've had a couple of phone conversations and stuff recently, but it's good to have you actually where I can see you and talk on the screen and stuff. So
yeah, man,
brings
it's
back.
been a while. I haven't been to Arizona in a while, so I haven't even been able to see you.
Yeah, well, when you do come down, you know, make look me up, and then I don't know, you can contact James too if you ever get down here or whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm always gonna hit up you and James and Matt and a bunch of my other friends. Ray, if he's still there, I don't know if he's still listening to Big Stones. I'll hit him up. A few of my other friends, Art. Coincidentally, we do art, and I have a friend named Art.
Yeah. I wonder if that there's like some of my favorite favorite comic artists is Art Adams. You ever wonder if you name that, if that kind of drives you into that profession?
Spiegelman,
Spiegelman, yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So I guess I'll kind of go back around counterclockwise. So Corey, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at CoreyKerr.com. CoreyKerr.com/store will take you to the stuff. CoreyKerr.com/email will get you to my email newsletter. Or you can just go to the homepage and those things are there as well. You can see the comics and phone cases and kind of editorial illustrations and stuff I've been working on for the last little bit.
All right, Josh, what about you?
All right. If you want to see me working on graphic novels and comics and all sorts of stuff like that, make sure that you are subscribed and you've hit that bell so you get notifications on my stuff.
To
and then
this
check
channel.
out. Yes, and check out joshuakemble.com. And also, I just wanted to comment, Corey's working on a piece that says oligarchs on it. And I came up with a joke the other day that people who've been following since the beginning of the Kreml, this is an inside joke for people on my channel. You are members of the Kremlin, and I realized that the early people are members of the Kremlin, so they're the oligarchs of the Kremlin. I'm just going to keep rolling with that Kremlin nonsense, and I'll pass it on.
All right, and as far as me, you can find my stuff at circworks.com. I've got comics, I've got digital products for making comics. Also, check out my YouTube channel, Circworks Art Labs on YouTube. Just doing some awesome stuff, reverse engineering retro stuff from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Really cool stuff. I'll have a new video coming out on Tuesday. Check that out. And this show we do, the Artcasters, we do this show every single week. Lately, we've been doing it on Sundays, but that could change, and we may go back to our normal time at some point. But basically, what I'm saying is schedules can change. Every week we do a show. We have a different guest, different topic. Could be a different time. It gets confusing. Oh, different channels.
We could be different people.
Yeah, different. But it could be on Corey's channel. It could be on Josh's channel. All that stuff. It can get a little confusing, but we want to alleviate all that confusion. And the way we do that is we've got a link in the description of this video. Just join our mailing list. We don't spam you. The only thing we do is about at least 30 minutes before we go live, we send out an email. It tells you what channel, whose channel is going to be on, who the guest is going to be, and all that stuff. So you can keep track of us. So definitely check that out. And
did Chris say where people could find him? I don't know if you got to that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you want,
website, if you want.
Awesome.
I have not been maintaining it the last few years, but I do have plans to update it with a bunch of my new artwork soon.
Awesome.
So I don't know, probably sometime within the next few months, it'll eventually get done.
Awesome.
But there's still cool artwork on there. It's just not super recent.
Well, if you're not familiar with your stuff, then it's new to them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely check out clarkillustrations.com.
Especially to check out his soon-to-be graphic novel that he's going to do.
Yeah. Okay. After my kids are in college and I'm retired, then you'll see that novel.
Join us. Okay. Anyhow. All right.
All right. Yeah, and I also wanted to give a shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you for keeping the conversations going, and we'll see you all next week. Oh, actually, yeah, I won't be on next week, but Josh and Corey will see, and whoever their guest is going to be. So,
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
just
Chris.
hold on.
Awesome.
Hey, wait, how many millions of views did we get?